It's the best football weekend of the year, the division round. We have 4 incredible games to break down today. Bills at Broncos, 49ers at Seahawks, Texans at Patriots, and of course Rams at Bears in what could potentially be freezing conditions over there in Chicago. One of the coldest games in Chicago history, and that's saying a lot. So a lot of great games to go over today. EJ, before we get things started, how are you?
This is why you lift all them weights, or in this case, watch all that tape. Great Bill Parcells quote. This is a great weekend of football, and we're coming off a great weekend of football. Not always the case in the wild card round, but literally the Houston-Pittsburgh game, the only sort of stinker of the entire slate. The rest of the games, every single one of them was compelling, and it should just continue on from this point. This is going to be some quality, and we're going to break down why and what are going to be the most fun matchups to track throughout these very good and what should be very competitive games.
Chargers-Patriots is kind of like a half stinker. I'll give that one half credit.
Right.
We're going to start today with Bills-Broncos on the other side of the intro. So, Neil, please, roll. Welcome to the Bootleg Football Podcast. I'm Brett Coleman. That's EJ Snyder. We're talking Bills-Broncos to kick off a division round preview show. I'd forgotten before starting to do work on this game that the Bills ended the Broncos season last year. A very forgettable game in my defense because it was 31-7. And the key statistical takeaway from that one, which I truly have not thought about this game since the day after it happened last year. Bo Nix had 62 yards passing on their opening drive last year against Sean McDermott's defense and only 82 passing yards for the entire rest of the game. That might not sound relevant for a game that's almost an entire year later, but when you look at what Sean McDermott did to Trevor Lawrence last week, it actually is kind of relevant because Sean McDermott against young quarterbacks tends to favor the Bills, and like by a lot. So I'm actually more worried about the Broncos in this game than I expected to be, simply because they probably got the most inopportune draw out of all of these teams, and that's the Buffalo Bills.
Playoffs are the playoffs. You got to play who comes up on the schedule. I spent a lot of time last weekend talking to folks I know who are fans of different teams. I sat with a Seahawks fan on Saturday at lunch, and they were up in arms about potential matchups and who they might have to play. And I was like, look, man, calm down. Like, you got to play who you got to play. And to get through the playoffs, you got to play the best. Doesn't really matter what order they come up in. You can argue about that, and maybe one step further is better, but it's not that big a deal. And yeah, the Broncos are catching Josh Allen in the playoffs, and that is never a good thing for the opposing team. It's pretty rough. Look, the Broncos offense, they don't really want to throw the ball. For the reasons that you said. McDermott is very good, a former defensive back coach by trade, and he put one on Trevor in Jacksonville, especially in the second half last week. He is in his bag right now, and suddenly Tre'Davious White, one of my favorite quarterbacks coming out that year, who has struggled through injury and poor performance, decided to play like God for, about 45 minutes. And they don't win that game without Trey White and his contributions. And again, if you'd said that to a Buffalo fan after his first stint in Buffalo, they would have said, get bent, I don't believe you. Broncos are going to try and run through the Bills. And if they can, and Jacksonville did to a point before they shut him down, they're just going to do that for a couple of reasons. One is to limit Bo's, I don't want to say limit Bo's number of throws, because I looked this up and I thought, I bet in Broncos wins this year, which there are a whole lot more of than Broncos losses, that he has a lot less throws. He doesn't. He's dead steady. It is one throw different between wins and losses in terms of numbers of attempts. So it's not about limiting Bo's throws. It's not like one of those, if Bo throws 35 times, because that's about the average, it's like 34 point something and 36 point something. It's very, very similar. They've been doing that all year. It's not like, oh, if we make him throw more than 20 times, we're going to lose. It's about limiting him having to push the ball. And if they can get the ground game going, get offensive success, it's going to do two things. It's going to keep the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, and it's also going to limit those times when we're forcing Bo into big time situations where he has to make a throw. It's not that he can't. He's made a bunch of those this year, but it's not the position you want to put him in if you're Sean Payton. If you can grind it out on the ground, control the pace of the game, get your yards, get your first downs. Again, I don't think it's going to be necessarily high scoring, but keep the ball out of Josh's hands and not make Bo chuck it up. That's a good place for the Broncos to be. So if they can do that and the Bills can't stop them on defense, that's going to be their play. The only difference in Bo's passing is in the 3 losses versus the 14 wins, his average depth of target in the losses is over a yard higher. So he has to, at that point, throw it up. It's not completely unexpected that the 8 out would be higher in a loss because at the end you're throwing it up, trying to make it happen. But overall, it's very steady play from Bo Nix. Now, steady good, steady bad, we could talk about, but it's been very similar in the wins and the losses. If they can control the ground game, which a lot of teams have been able to do versus the Bills, I think they're going to do that. But this is a huge caveat. Do not discount trick plays. Everybody talks about Ben Johnson in his bag with trick plays. Broncos have averaged almost 1 trick play per game this year. They have 13 of them in 17 games. Peyton loves his trick plays. Now, sometimes they come on special teams, sometimes they come on offense, but they've had a big explosive rate off their trick plays. 23%. For reference, 12 to 15% is very good for an explosive run rate on a trick play. So you're looking at basically double that out of trick plays. And if you don't think McDermott's cautioning his guys, hey, Sean's going to pull one out, because Sean is going to pull one out this week, you'd be wrong. McDermott is good at preparing his guys for that, but just be watching for it. It is going to show up this week.
You mentioned a couple times, control the game on the ground, you don't want Bo to be pushing the ball down the field. Not that he can't, but you really want to try to maximize the yards after catch nature of this passing game, and again, control the ball on the ground. And I look at it, from the sense of limiting total possessions in the game, but more importantly, limiting the amount of time that Josh Allen is on the field. Because if you're looking at last week's result, again, the Bills gave up 150 yards rushing again, but they still controlled time of possession again. Right. And this is a stat that we brought up after the last Patriots game where they came back against New England. They gave up 185 plus yards rushing 6 times as of that second Bills game. And they had won 4 of them. And if you're looking at the nature of the Bills' run defense, yes, they do give up a lot of yards rushing, but it's mostly on explosives. It's not, the 4 or 5 yard run over and over and over again. So the fact that they gave up 185 plus 6 times in it, that's 1 every 3 games. They're giving up 185, but they won time of possession on 4 of them, and they won 4 of those games. So it's really about not are you getting rushing yards, it's are you controlling the clock. Like, I'd almost rather get 3.8 yards per carry, but I have 34 minutes of time of possession than I'm getting 7 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry, like what Jacksonville was getting. But, they got 62 plays in Buffalo compared to 54 in Jacksonville. I don't want Josh Allen to have more plays. Like, it's insanity to want Josh Allen to touch the ball more than Trevor Lawrence, or in this case, more than Bo Nix. So I agree with you, like, don't push the ball down the field with Bo, but not from a, we don't think Bo can make those throws, but from a, let's just stay on the field as much as humanly possible, right? We get 9 possessions, you get 9 possessions. We think that, over the course of the game, if we can run the ball effectively, the air is thin, it's windy, it's dry, we can grind you down, and you're not going to be used to that thin air in the fourth quarter, and we can just kind of take it over and, and win that way. Like, that is Denver's greatest home field advantage, is the literally not being able to breathe as a road team. So weaponize that. Get your 4 to 5 yards at a time. Keep Josh on the bench. And just make that defense really, really tired, so that in the last 15 minutes of the game, they can't stop you when you need a drive. And we know it's going to come down to one drive. Like, I'd almost guarantee you it's going to come down to one drive. So you might as well soften them up as much as humanly possible so that you're ready for that one drive.
Yeah, I got the same note. They're going to use it to tire the Bills out because, again, this is at altitude and there's no real way to prepare for that. We talk about inclement weather, talk about wind and cold and poor field conditions and everything else. This is a unique advantage in the National Football League. Get people up over a mile in altitude and just run it through their face for the entire game and then see if they can hang on. And most teams can't hang on for the entire time. So if you do come down to that tight game in the end, that's an advantage for the Broncos. So they're going to try and push it. Overall, I think the sort of bright lights, big headline from this game is the number 3 rushing defense in the league, Denver at 3.9 yards allowed per rush versus the number 2 rushing attack in the NFL, Buffalo at 4.9 yards per attempt. Fight! This is like middle school, right? Like the lunchroom divides up and the 2 big kids go at it, and you're like, this is the marquee matchup. So if the run game stalls out for Buffalo, if Denver is able to stymie them, if they get the upper hand in the rushing game, then what's going to happen? Glad you asked. Buffalo turns to their tight ends more than almost any team in the league. They have the 4th highest percentage of passing yards from tight ends, and the 3rd highest percentage of touchdowns from tight ends. Broncos are middle of the pack defending the tight end. They weren't bad at it. They certainly have the personnel to do it. They gave up 95 catches, about 1,000 yards, 46 first down, and 6 touchdowns to tight ends, which puts them right around 14, 15, depending on which of those statistics you're prioritizing. But that's going to be the Bills' counterpunch if Cook gets slowed down early. Now, it's not going to make them change their course. The Bills have been resolute under Joe Brady. They will continue to run the ball. They did it in Jacksonville, the second half. They are not going to go away from that. It is their identity. But if they are not getting the production they need, they're going to pivot to the tight ends, and then Denver's going to have to pivot as well, try and cover those guys. So that's the one to watch. And sneakily enough, we were very hard, rightfully so, on the Bills' wide receiver usage earlier in the season. And one Brandon Cook showed up mid-season, and I'm not going to say he's transformed it single-handedly, and Shavers is out with an ACL, but they've been getting quietly more from their outside receivers than they did early in the season. Again, the volume isn't incredible, but situationally, they are getting contributions, especially from Cooks down the field. Khalil Shakir has been a constant there, but now he's got a little bit of help. So even if you do lock down the tight ends, they might be able to squeak one into the wide receivers, even if they're completely covered. That one throw to Brandon Cooks in Jacksonville, I have no idea how Josh completed that. The out to the sideline, defender draped all over him. The path that ball had to travel through. We say it's a game of inches. That box that ball had to go through to be completed was smaller than that. It was pinpoint accurate. So they do have ways out. It's going to come down to a few plays. I don't like the Bills' chances at altitude, but I am never going to get a bet against Josh Allen because, come on, even with what he was able to do, completely haggard in that Jacksonville game. He's in the blue tent twice in the first half. Once to get checked for concussion, once because his lower leg got bent backwards on the goal line.
I can't believe it didn't fall off like that. Do you know how many people would tear every ligament in their knee if that same thing happened to them? Like, he's modern day Ben Roethlisberger, where it just doesn't make sense how he still walks after some of these
smashed
hits.
His finger on a helmet, his index finger on a throwing hand, and the ball wobbled for a quarter, and everybody was like, huh? And then suddenly, towards the end of the game, just trimmed right out, and he started throwing tight spirals again. You're like, how? How does that happen? But it happens. He is as tough as they come. He is going to be on the field, if at all possible, for his team. And when he's there, he's one of the best in the NFL.
The one weakness, and this is not a new thing for 2025, it also happened in 2024 too. Josh, more than you would expect for an elite quarterback, Josh under pressure versus not under pressure. Again, it doesn't feel that way in the moment because, again, you watch him fight off like entire packs of lions and then get a crazy throw off, and like that almost like erases the bad plays under pressure from your mind. But if you're looking at it statistically speaking, he does have a pretty significant drop off under pressure, And for whatever reason, we just always forget about that in favor of the highlights. But I just want to read off a couple numbers for you here. His completion percentage drops off by 25% when he's under pressure. His EPA per play is cut in half. His touchdown to interception ratio goes from 6-1 to 1-1. Like when you see the bad picks, typically it's under pressure. But what's interesting about it, and this kind of speaks to how the Bills' offensive line is built. Again, big, strong, grizzly bear looking motherfuckers. Like these guys set a firm pocket. Like they're really good against power rushers, right? They're really good at stopping bull rushes, keeping Josh from being caged in. But when you send extra bodies at them, because they are so big and strong, sometimes I feel like they don't react to speed that well. And I don't mean speed off the edge. I'm talking like a late ad rush from a linebacker or like a nickel coming off the, like sometimes stuff just slips through that wouldn't against a smaller offensive line that's a little bit more quicker, a little bit more agile, right? And so if you're looking at the propensity for 4-man rushes to affect Josh versus 5+ rushers, like when you're sending blitzes at him, very different equation here. And this is really where you see the pressure affect Josh as a quarterback. So just under pressure, pure under pressure, not 4 versus 5, but under pressure by 4 versus under pressure by 5+. His completion percentage goes from 56.2% under pressure against 4, which is actually okay, versus under pressure from 5+, it goes down to 38.9%. His yards per attempt under pressure against a 4-man rush is 8.8, so he's actually higher than almost everybody else when under pressure, but under pressure from 5+, it goes down to 4.9. So again, blitzes kind of crater his effectiveness because guys come free, and for whatever reason, that just affects him as a quarterback. TD interception ratio goes from 6-4 to 1-3, so it flips negative when blitzes start getting home on him. EPA per play goes from plus 0.46 to minus 0.6, which is atrocious. And if you're looking at the difference in time to pressure, again, this speaks to the type of offensive line they have. Average time to pressure against 4-man rushes is 2.78 seconds, which, all things considered, kind of an eternity, right? 2.78, ball's usually gone by then, whereas their average time to pressure against a blitz is 2.43. So if you want to get pressure on Josh, you got to send blitzes. You typically get there a hell of a lot faster with blitzes against this Buffalo offensive line as presently constituted, and those blitzes affect Josh a lot more as well. So for me, looking at those numbers, if I'm Denver, the game plan is blitz, and then blitz again, and then blitz again, and then blitz again. Play the run on the way to the quarterback. I don't care. Send the nickel, send the linebackers, send the safeties, send everybody. You blitz, 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 because I think that might be the only thing they can really do. Like, I understand you got all pro defenders back there. You got a defensive player of the year at corner. There's not a whole lot that Pat Surtain can do against a perfect throw. It doesn't really matter who the receiver is. Josh is going to put it where Josh wants it, right? And even Pat Surtain is going to get beat by leverage throws 7 times in a game if Josh isn't under pressure. So don't trust yourself to win with 4. Send 5, send 6. Make Josh have to make that perfect throw against Pat Surtain while also dodging a free rusher, and then you got a shot. But if you try to rush with 4 all night, there's really only one defense that I think could do that against them, and it's Houston, and this defense ain't Houston. Sorry.
It'll be interesting to see if they take that approach. I hope they do, because what you can turn that into is the defensive equivalent of play action later in the game. If you can make Josh flinch thinking 5 are coming, because 5 have been coming all game, or 6 have been coming all game. If you can make him think that's going to happen and then drop out, that's when you're going to catch him. He's going to react as if he's under pressure when he's not, and he's going to make one of those throws, and that's when your all-pro corner gets to pick it off. So if they can make that setup work, if they can bring pressure and get to him and shake him a little bit in the first half and lower that effectiveness enough that he starts to press and then show it and drop out, they could get a big play on defense out of that.
Before we get to the next game, do you have a prediction for the winner here?
Oh, like I said, I don't like betting against Josh, but I think the altitude and the physical wear and tear, I know we think he's superhuman and he can shake it off, are going to make this closer than it was. If he was coming into this completely healthy, I would just bet Josh. He's very experienced in these games, and he does rise to the occasion. He is one of those quarterbacks that will make those 3 or 4 plays down the stretch that you just go, boy, nobody else can make that, and they needed to have it or they're not going to be there. Those are the plays you need from your quarterback in the playoffs. And whenever a team doesn't have somebody at quarterback, Josh is always the guy they bring up. Like, well, how are we going to beat Josh Allen? Because he makes those plays. So tough for me to bet against him. I know Sean's wired up for this one. I don't know. The Broncos are really good at bringing pressure, but voting against Josh Allen's tough. I'm going to say Bills. I'm going to vote with my heart, not my head.
Well, I did say at the start of the playoffs that if we let the Broncos get the 1 seed, they were going to win the AFC because of the unique home field advantage that Mile High has, especially, again, when it's windy and dry. And I don't know what the temperature is going to be. It's not going to be Chicago cold. But that altitude is... I watched so many great Patriot teams roll into Denver in the playoffs and not be able to do anything. That's just a really, really special environment in January. And I said if they got the 1 seed, I would pick them to win the conference. So I'm going to stick with that. I just wish it wasn't against the one matchup that I feared the most for them, which is Buffalo. If there's one team that's going to go in there and beat them, it's the Bills. But I'll stick to the Broncos for now. I don't feel great about it, but I will. Today's show is brought to you by Chubbies, who conveniently recently got an NFL license, so now they can make team apparel like the Seahawks polo that I have on right now. Beyond these performance polos, they also have swim trunks and mesh shorts for every single team and every single fan base. Or even if you're not a 49ers fan, but you just happen to really, really like George Kittle, they also have a whole line of apparel just with George. These are great for tailgates or pool parties or golfing or stuff that you're not really going to do this time of year anyway, but still, eventually, it's going to get warm again. So if you just want to future-proof your wardrobe, or maybe you want to shop for another NFL fan in your life, go check out the catalog over at Chubbies. And if you go to chubbyshorts.com/bootleg, you get a $10 discount on your order as well. Again, chubbyshorts.com/bootleg. Check out the catalog, get that $10 discount, and we thank you, Chubbies, once again for sponsoring the show. With that, let's get back to it. All right, next game on the docket, 49ers Seahawks. I'm going to get this one out of the way. I'm picking the Seahawks to win this game, but if the 49ers were healthy, I would pick them against anybody. Like, literally anybody at this point. The combination of Shanahan and Saleh is the best coaching duo in football this year. You know, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Like, Kyle would be my pick for coach of the year. I believe he was your pick for coach of the year for what they've done through all of these injuries. They just took another devastating injury and still won the game this week. Lost George Kittle with an Achilles. I don't know if they're going to have Ricky Pearsall. You know, I don't know, really what their status for Fred Warner is. I know they opened the practice window. I don't know if that means he's going to play. But at this point, I almost don't care because whoever's on the field, you're going to get the best version of the 49ers because this coaching staff is so damn good. I do think they lose this game because they're just out of bullets. Like, they really are. And we saw that play out against Seattle a couple weeks ago. But if this was healthy team against healthy team, I would pick the Niners. It's just they're not healthy. And the Seahawks are rested. And also, by the way, the Seahawks are really damn good too. So it's unfortunate that we don't get to see these two teams at full strength go to war because I think that they really are the two best teams in the conference when healthy. But only one of them is healthy right now.
Yeah, and Mike Mack, no slouch as a head coach. He just whooped this team in Week 18. And if you're Kyle Shanahan, that's what you go into this game with. You have extra ammunition. You just saw that game a couple of weeks ago. You need to try and solve that Mike Mack headlock that he put you in because they allowed 3 points. And this defense is one of the most dominant in the entire league. We talk a lot about Houston, but...
You're choosing fighting words here, EJ.
Here's
Tread
how
carefully.
dominant it is. They rank first in, big breath in, total yards allowed, passing yards allowed, rushing yards allowed, red zone defense, completion percentage allowed, interceptions, sacks, touchdowns allowed, EPA. Just those. Those are the only ones they're first in.
I'm going to tell Will Anderson you said that, and then he's going to tell Aziz, and you're going to have to deal with that. So
I don't want to deal with either one of those guys, but in terms of what Mike Mack is doing, I don't want to chalk this up to just the 49ers aren't healthy. The Seahawks, we've talked about it for years now. John Schneider has drafted well. Mike Mack, we were very excited when he got appointed as head coach. He almost won this division in the first year. He put his stake in the ground, won it the second year, and he just throttled this Niners team. If Kyle Shanahan wins this game, because it is possible, I don't think it's probable either. I too am picking the Hawks. If Kyle Shanahan somehow finds a way to win this game against the Hawks on the road with the team he has left, he's not coach of the year. He's like coach of the last 5 years. I'm not going to give him coach of the decade, but like that would be a superhuman coaching effort. It would take something especially out of the realm of what we're considering, because losing Kittle, everybody talks about how good he is in the passing game. Kittle is so good in the run game. Losing Kittle in the run game, going to face this defense as dominant as it is, as aggressive as it is. Look, this is a defense that held CMC, who is one of the best players in the NFL offensively, to 23 yards on 8 carries. Outside of that second game against Seattle, this is a guy that averaged 73 rushing yards, not to mention his receiving yards, on 18 carries. He had 23 on 8. It is a superlative in terms of, look, we'll give the Hawks, just to placate you, we'll give Hawks best defense in the NFC, Houston best defense in the
I'm
AFC.
willing to accept that.
All right. just to keep peace on the podcast. But I think this is too much task for really anyone, including Kyle Shanahan, who we obviously have great respect for as a coach. I think Mike Mack and the Hawks march through, win this one at home, head on to the conference championship game, and deserve to be there. Now, does the offense have to play better than it did in their last outing? Yeah, 13 points is not a lot. I would like to see a few more out of this offense. They're certainly capable of it. Robert Saleh has been doing a great job, again, without all his bits and pieces, but man, he has those guys playing together as a unit. That's always dangerous, but Darnold's going to have to, for his own legacy as well, step up and create, I would say, at least a couple of touchdowns here. And if he does, it'll quiet some of those voices and, quite frankly, ease Seahawks fans' nerves heading into the rest of the playoffs, because they're a nervy bunch, I have to say. After spending lunch with one last Saturday, they're a nervous group for how good this team is.
They know how fleeting Super Bowl windows can be, right? Because they went from, oh my God, we're going to be a dynasty, to, oh, it got intercepted on the goal line, and then we never tasted that kind of success again. So they understand how rare it is to be able to go on a run, let alone to be the 1 seed and to have everybody have to come to Seattle, one of the most terrifying environments in sports. Like that is not an opportunity to be taken lightly. And I think they are keenly aware of that. And that's also part of the reason why they're so nervous about this game, is because they've seen what Kyle can do with nothing, and they don't underestimate him whatsoever. Now, I will say, if the 49ers were going to have success offensively against Mike Macdonald, not that I think that they will, but if they were, I would copy the other great team in the division, the Rams, who just put up, I think it was like 37 points about a month ago against this defense in a wild TNF game that ultimately is the reason why Seattle got the 1 seed. But Stafford was able to stretch the field on this defense, throw 20 plus yards, or really throw 15 plus yards outside the numbers against this Seattle defense. And I don't really think the Niners have that in their tool bag right now. So if you're looking at just the passing charts for that last game from Stafford against Seattle versus the last one from Purdy against Seattle, if you're just looking at 16 plus yards down the field, like not even outside the numbers, but just 16 plus yards down the field, Purdy only had 2 throws at that depth. Stafford had 11 the last time he played against this team. Now, he didn't hit all of them, but he did hit several big shots down the field, not just over the middle, but also, again, at the sidelines. Like, you have to be aggressive against this Seahawks defense, because if you're not, and if you try to play with the style of passing game that it certainly feels like the Niners are restricted to right now, which is using their typical condensed formations and motion to try to pull apart hook zone defenders and work the intermediate middle. If that's all you can do because you can't threaten outside the numbers, now you get into a situation where it's going to look like that Cleveland game, right? That 49ers Browns game 2 or 3 years ago when the Niners kind of stumbled in the middle of the season. They lost a bunch of games in a row. And it's because the Niners literally just played one hole for like the entire fourth quarter. It was man coverage. They had Denzel Ward. They had Martin Emerson. Like, they had a bunch of great DBs. They put Delpit as the whole defender over the middle. And they said, if you're going to try to throw these crossing routes, like, they're going to die. Try to beat us outside the numbers, down the field, take advantage of these one-on-ones. And he couldn't do it. Right. And I feel like that's what McDonald's going to do. Not necessarily just playing one hole, but it's going to be a whole bunch of cover 3. Like, they are probably going to play, some robber coverages. They are going to play Tampa. They're going to take away the middle of the field and say, hit the hole shot or throw the 50-50 ball down the sideline. Like, if all we got to deal with is Ricky Pearsall playing at like 70%, we'll take our shot against that. And we're going to trust that you can't work the middle of the field against, all of our defensive back and all of our linebacker talent. And you're certainly not going to do it, more than 2.5 seconds before our pass rush can get there. I don't think the Niners have, from a skill position standpoint anymore, I don't think the Niners have enough bullets in that gun to hurt the Seahawks in the only area where they can be hurt, and that's down the field. So it is what it is. It's a really unfortunate way that I think their season's going to come to an end. Again, if they were fully healthy, I probably would go with the Niners here, but they're not. And the Seahawks they're so damn talented. I don't think they're going to get got here. I really don't.
They are primed for what looks to be a dominant defensive run. And I will say, if the Hawks somehow end up meeting the Texans in the Super Bowl, that is going to be a defensive slugfest for the ages. It is going to be a ridiculous game. Now, I don't think that's the most likely matchup, but if it does come to pass, for those of us that really like taking part the matchups in games, that one is going to be like, well, I don't know. You don't want to take a punch from either one of these. So we'll see what happens.
Now, next game on the docket, speaking of the Texans, they're going out to Foxborough this weekend to play against the Patriots, fresh off an ass whooping of the Chargers. And we kind of saw that ass whooping coming, not going to lie. Like, with how bad the Chargers offensive line was, like, we knew that they were going to struggle to move the ball, but even that was embarrassing. So I look at this game very differently than the Chargers matchup, because the Texans actually can block. I know it's going to sound crazy. The Texans have a real offensive line all of a sudden. They can run block pretty darn well. Their pass protection's gotten really good in the second half of the year, partly because their running backs are so good in pass protection. So when they're in these 6 and 7 man pass protections, like, CJ's actually been mostly fairly comfortable. Ariante Ergery's turned into a very quality starting tackle. Like, things are going well protection-wise in Houston. And again, they've gotten better at run blocking every single month over the course of this season. So this is a very, very different matchup than the Chargers game was. I don't think New England has a sizable advantage in the trenches like they did against the Chargers. And at that point, to me, what it comes down to is, can New England up front survive the Texans' defensive line? They struggled mightily protecting Drake May, and I know part of that was, they have some young offensive linemen there, a rookie duo on the left side that struggled picking up blitzes, and they struggled picking up stunts. They're going to see more of that against Houston, but also they're going to see more of it from better players. So if I'm New England, like, I am not going to be in a 5-man protection the entire night. I want 6. I want 7. I will take my chances that Drake May can just fit a ball through a keyhole down the field, but he will be protected at all costs. Like, I cannot trust these guys to protect 5-on-4. It's not going to happen. I would much rather over-index on protection than not and have to, scrape him off the grass.
Yeah, similar focus for New England as it is for San Francisco, interestingly enough. Can you break the defensive stalemate of an elite unit? We just talked about the Seahawks defense being at the top of the league. Houston is right there. They are a terrifying defense in terms of how they project to opposing offenses and what they allow them to do and the windows that they allow them to do that in. They're very small and they don't last very long. So interestingly enough, Drake is going to have to draw on some of the experiences from his rookie year, which was very rocky, running for his life and managing very muddy pockets and trying to make something out of nothing without creating hugely negative plays like pick sixes, because that would be the most disastrous thing, is allowing that defense to score. If you can, again, pick your spots and not make huge mistakes, which is tough to do against this defense, you just have to sort of keep your powder dry in this one and keep yourself alive to the fourth quarter so that you can hope to make that play, because Drake has played at a very good level all season long. A lot of people saying he's the shoe-in for MVP. Good reason for that. He's made tremendous progress in year 2, but this is a different animal that he's facing. One of the top defenses, not only in the league, but in the last 2 or 3 years in terms of the amount of pressure, the types, the matchups. There's just not a lot of chances that D'Amico gives you to do anything, and Drake is going to have to do it from an uncomfortable stance. We are not. I would be most surprised in this game if we saw Drake May standing in the pocket with plenty of time picking apart a defense. That would be shocking to me. I think that's the least likely result. So he does have that experience. I don't think that's really silver lining it, like saying, your rookie year when you got harassed endlessly is a good thing, but he does have it in the tool bag, so he's going to have to go back and try and make some of those plays. And a potential advantage for the Patriots offense versus this very difficult defense. Henderson isolated on Henry To'oTo'o. Passing from condensed sets. Make it messy. Just chuck everything together and then have Henderson look like he's going to be one of those additional protectors because he's gotten better in that role, and then have him leak out. That way you can match him up against To'oTo'o. You can get that isolation, and I don't think Henry can stay with him. In fact, let me rephrase that. I'm sure Henry can't stay with Henderson as he runs across the formation. So is that a big play? It could be. On the face of it, it doesn't look like it unless you're giving him a little stutter go, but that would take forever, and you're not going to have forever. You are going to have the chance to slip him through the line and make some gains. If that's all you're looking at is hey, this is what we can leverage, this is what shakes out in our favor, it's a pretty thin outlook for the Patriots against this defense. You just have to try and be accurate. You are going to have to take some shots. They do get out of position. If you've watched, Derek Stingley Jr., one of the best corners in football, he's been beaten, right? They are going to put him out there in man, but are you going to be upright when that happens? The Texans defense does a very good job of covering up those openings, or I'll say mistakes, because the pressure is relentless. The edges are 2 of the best. We're talking about 2 of the top 10 to 15 edges in football, and they play for the same team. It's going to be rough, and when those openings occur, you're going to have to hit them. They're not going to come around again. You're not going to get a second chance. You're not going to get to wait and hit that throw in the third window. If it's halfway open in the second, Drake's going to have to be pinpoint accurate and make that happen. If he does, they have a chance in this one. I'll call it a puncher's chance, but those chances are just few and far between. You can't miss them.
Man, if the Patriots' only advantage offensively is a check release by Travion Henderson, you got problems.
I was going to say, you got any
problems.
Others? You got any others lined up? Because I don't like the matchups. Usually we're going to find one run game, pass game, or several. It's not that the Patriots aren't going to make some offensive plays here. They are, but again, is it meaningful? We opened the show talking about explosive runs just versus number of total runs. Are you getting anything for the few you get through versus all the liability of exposing yourself to, again, long developing pass plays and turning Drake May into a stain against this pass rush? There's just so many things that stack in Houston's defensive favor that it's not even hitting green lights. It's you said fitting through keyholes. It's like fitting through multiple keyholes on the same arrow shot. It's very, very difficult to do.
To me, again, if you're using your running backs as anything other than pass protectors in this game, D'Amico, by the time you get to third quarter, he's going to be like, oh, Azeez, go kill that guy. Right? And I don't mean Travion as that guy. I mean Drake. He's like, oh, if they're going to protect with 5, we're going to send 5 because they got no shot of stopping 4 anyway. They for damn sure don't have a shot of stopping 5. So even if he gets the throw off, he's going to be on the ground. And we're going to do that about 4 times before they realize, like, ooh, we probably shouldn't be giving Trevion touches while sacrificing Drake May's ribcage. Like, that's probably not a trade-off that we want to do. So you use the aggression to force them into being passive again. And that's typically how the Texans defense has won, is they just hit you so hard and so fast over and over and over again until you feel like you don't have any other choice but to protect with 6 and 7 guys. And then they still have 7 in coverage, and like, all right, we're going to build a box around, your 1 and your 2, and we're going to trust Stingley and Lassiter one-on-one backside if you beat us with Kayshon Boutte. Okay, can you do it 6 times this game? Probably not. And they just trust that their pass rush will set the tone so well that you're not going to be able to do anything, because they're going to have a numbers advantage on the back end, because they have what's the word? What is it when you force multiplier? That's what I'm looking for, right? Like, the defensive line is a force multiplier. Like, the fact that they can win 4-on-5 and 4-on-6 means that they're going to win 7-on-3 on the back end. Like, they don't do anything fancy. Like, first down is cover 3 and quarters. Second down is quarters and cover 3. Third down, if you're in long yardage, it's cover 3. If you're anything under 7 yards, it's cover 1. It's not hard to decipher what they're going to do. You literally just look at the alignments of the DBs and you're like, that's what they're in. And they look at you and like, we know, you're still going to die. And typically they're correct. So like, it's such a hard defense to beat because they don't rely on smoke and mirrors. Like, they really don't. Like, they tell you what they're going to do, and then they fucking do it. And they know that they're better than you, and they know that you can't pass protect against them, and they know that means that they're going to have a numbers advantage in coverage. Game over. Like, that's literally what it is. So if I'm Drake May, like, yeah, I'll try to get Trevion the ball in space without dying, but can you do that enough times? Nobody else has.
No, you're not going to string it together. And to your point, they hit. It's almost like the defensive backs get hungry because there's not that many completions. And when somebody does get that last second, I'm going to throw the dump off or the screen or whatever, they just attack that receiver with a ferocity that's just seemingly them releasing their pent-up aggression of like, hey, I haven't seen a throw in the last 15 or 20 downs. This is my only chance. I'm going to obliterate that guy. And they don't miss. They're a very good tackling team. So anything you might get by, escaping that rush by throwing up, some little chuck it check down, you're not getting anything after that. You're not getting any yak. You're not getting any explosives. They converge. They hit like crazy. They're going to try and force fumbles. They are just aggressive and fast. They're a very, very good, very solid, very well-coached defense that has a lot of cohesion. You don't see a lot of busts. Like a couple of years ago from the Texas defense, you'd see busts. Like, I know you hated it. You don't see those anymore. They've basically evaporated. D'Amico has just sort of scrubbed them out of existence, and now it's just pack of lions attacking as one, and it is fun to watch. I mean, as a lover of defensive football, boy, it's like, if only you could do this. Coaches around the country are like, we don't have the athletes, but if you 11 can play together as one to this level, we're going to win games because there's just no air. They don't give anybody room to breathe.
There's an old defensive coachism, which is if we're all wrong, we're going to be all wrong together, right? And that'll make us right. The fact that they don't do anything fancy, it's literally just quarters, cover 3, and cover 1. It's the same 3 coverages over and over and over again. It's very reminiscent of the mid-2000s Bears, right? And Brian Urlacher said that they would go into some games with 6 calls on the sheet. 6. Right? It was a man pressure, a zone pressure. They had middle field closed man and zone, which was cover 3 and cover 1, and then middle field open man and zone, which was 2-man or Tampa. They would play cover 3 almost every single early down. If they wanted to get fancy and play cover 2 on an early down, they would pair it with a pirate stunt so they could still play the run. Third down was always Tampa 2. And if they got real frisky or if it was third and short, they played cover 1. But like, they had 6 calls on the sheet, so they never screwed up, right? They never busted. And if they were wrong, like if they got caught in a call, they were all wrong together. So they mitigated, disastrous plays where somebody's running wide ass open for a long touchdown. That's what the Texans do. Like they don't play anything crazy. So everybody knows what they're doing. And I don't. Am I crazy for thinking that the Texans like have the advantage in this game? Like everybody's kind of anointing that it's going to be, New England going to Denver or New England hosting Buffalo. But like, if you're looking at who has the best unit in this game between Patriots offense and defense and Texans offense and defense, the Texans defense is by far the best unit in this game. Like it's not even close, not even remotely close. And I'm not saying the Texans offense is great, but if the Texans offense is the fourth best unit in this game, but they're only barely behind the Patriots offense and defense, and the Texans defense is way the fuck up there, I'm going to trust that unit that's way the fuck up there to win the game. So for me, I'm picking Houston to win this game. I think it's insanity that people think it's like a done deal that New England's going to win. Like I'm sorry. I've watched these guys play all year long. CJ Stroud turned the ball over 3 times and it didn't matter. They gave up 6 points. It's incomparable what they're able to do. Like just flat out incomparable.
Yeah, the caveat is CJ's just got to play normal, man. It's the meme.
Dude, if he doesn't turn it over, they win by 10 points. Like literally all he has to do is just not turn it over. That's it.
You got to have a solid contribution from the running game to take the pressure off CJ. He's not playing great. Vrabel knows that. He's going to have his guys ready to sell out versus the run to try and, as crazy as it sounds, push the ball back into CJ's hands because CJ has not played super well all season. He's not been a huge difference maker in his last game. Look, that was a disaster. He wasn't even catching the snap. So start with that. But he's not on a heater or peaking at the right time, kind of basically the opposite. So what he has to do to help his team win the game is just limit mistakes. Just let that defense hunt and don't screw it up. Start by catching the snap, get back to basics. Don't make disastrous turnovers or, chuck it up plays across the middle because you're going down to a sack. Just take the sack. It's fine. Even if you lose a bunch of field position, your defense is going to bail you out time and time and time again. So he just has to play normal. He played below that in the last game, and they still won. So against a better, more complete team, I think if he just limits his mistakes and kind of gets out of the way for the defense, which, Year of the Lord 2026 sounds crazy to be saying for an NFL team, but that's how good this Texans defense is. CJ just has to be average, and I think the Texans probably win this game. I'm going to pick them because that defense is hunting right now.
3 of the 4 most dominant defensive performances by EPA per play in the last decade by any team are this Texans defense under DeMeco Ryans. And this 2025 version is better than the 2024 and 2023 version. So again, we're looking at like an all-time defense. So I not to take anything away from the Patriots, they're a fantastic team. They really are. But very similar to Denver, where I'm like, God, they got like the worst possible matchup for Denver. The Patriots got the worst possible matchup for themselves. Like if I was them, I would have wanted to play against anybody in the AFC field other than Houston. I thought that they had a better matchup against Jacksonville. They definitely have a better matchup against Buffalo. They got a better matchup against Denver, certainly against the AFC North teams, obviously against the Chargers. Like the Texans are the one team that the Patriots are like, oh, fuck. Like, we got to deal with them. And I'm not saying that the Texans are going to win the Super Bowl either. Like, I know that they have very, very deep flaws themselves, but matchup-wise, this one hurts for New England. It really does. All right, last game on the docket here, Rams at Bears. I don't know what the official weather report is right now. I just know
I do.
Really cold.
Okay, so this is going to be a factor. A lot of times when you hear about temperature in a game, I don't really buy it because a lot of it is like below 30. Hey, if it's 25, like it's not warm, and some teams are quote-unquote warm, other teams. That doesn't really sway my opinion. We're not talking about that, folks. We're talking about really, really cold. We are literally talking about one of the possibly 10 coldest games in Bears history. Bears have been playing football a long time. That is significant. Here's the actual forecast. The temperature is expected to be around 10 degrees with a -6 wind chill, with roughly an inch of snow, 55% chance of precipitation. Wind will be 12 miles an hour with gusts up to 22. So just picture the scene. -2-3 degrees feel on wind chill, snow falling sideways because the wind's blowing 12 to 15 miles an hour. This is not a cold weather game, folks. This is an outdoor, inclement, late season, gonna be a thing type of game. It's hard to see all your receivers when it's snowing like that. It's hard to grip the ball. It's hard to catch the ball. It is going to be a factor in this game, not to mention the kicking game and all the hijinks we might have there. So this isn't just like, oh, it's going to be chilly, they're going to have to bundle up. This is going to be a nasty, cold weather, late season game in Chicago, and it definitely is going to be a factor in this game, especially against a team that plays inside in Southern California.
It's bear weather, baby. I don't know how many more of these games we're going to get in Chicago because they insist on building a fucking dome in the Midwest, which I heavily disagree with, but, you know, enjoy them while you can, I guess, Chicago. This might be one of the last outdoor, snowy, playoff, loud, intense environments that we're going to get in Chicago. I'm looking forward to it. My top line from a matchup perspective for this game was the best defense is a good offense, because I don't know if you guys have noticed this year, the Bears defense is not very good, and Sean McVay is a very good play caller. So if we're looking at DA versus Sean McVay, not really a fair fight. But if Sean McVay doesn't get to call plays because his own offense isn't on the field, now we got a shot here. So for me, if I'm Ben Johnson, it's run, 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 run again. And then as soon as you think about passing, remember that Theo Benedette against Jared Verse, not exactly ideal, so run the ball again. Do whatever you can to make these 11, 12 play drives. Like we saw them start off that way against Green Bay, by the way. Like they had a 15 or 16 play drive to start that game? And I was like, okay, this is exactly what they have to do. They have to shrink the number of possessions. They have to save DA from himself. Started off great, then got away from him. You know, obviously Green Bay surged in the first half. They took advantage of all these stupid static middle field close coverages that DA insists on trying to run, even though he doesn't have the personnel to run it. Got down 21-3. And then he decided in the second half, oh, I should probably blitz. Anyway, getting off topic here. If you want to stop DA from getting shredded, run the ball, stay on the field as long as possible. I understand there's going to be temptation to go big game hunting in the pass game, as they tend to do every single game. But for me, I am focusing on efficiency, yards after the catch, and just keep Matthew Stafford on the bench. The longer he's on the bench, the colder he gets, the colder that entire offense gets, the better you're going to do defensively. But by no means am I going to try to, stretch the field and go explosive hunting in this game. Like I want 9 possessions max. I want every possession to be 8+ plays. I want Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift to both get 15+ carries, if not more. And I want this game to be like, as far as real time, under 3 hours. Like that's how fast I want it to go. I want that clock to drain fast. And then the Bears have a shot. But if this turns into, 11, 12 possessions for each team, as magical as this Bears season has been, I really don't like their odds handling that.
Going to be tough to win if that's the case. Speaking about keeping Stafford on the bench, yeah, you want to do that. He sucks in the cold. He is 1-8 when the temperature is below 30 at kickoff. So,
really?
And we're not.
Wow.
And we're not talking about 30. We're talking about 10 that feels like -6. So it is an advantage if you can keep him cold. I imagine all those things that hurt on Matthew Stafford, as they do on all pro football players, are going to hurt even more if it's chilly. But the Bears cannot start slowly, and I don't mean on offense or defense. I mean yes and. Spotting McVay 21 points is suicide in this game. You can't do it. Yes, he's friends with Matt LaFleur, but he's not going to let that lead go like Matt did. Dennis Allen has to take all the approaches that he took in the second half versus Green Bay. He's got to blitz more. He cannot go for and expect to get pressure. He couldn't, and he wouldn't get out of it until the second half, and then they did, and strangely enough, they got pressure, and their defensive outcomes became really, really good. So got to focus on man concepts and lay it on the table. If you lose, you're going home. If you spot McVay and Stafford 21 points, You lose. You're going to go home. So what do you have to lose? The answer is nothing. On offense, I'm with you. They need to focus on the run. And I'm going to say it. Brace yourself. Focus on feeding DeAndre Swift.
Dude, he's gotten a lot better this year.
He's really gotten a lot better as he has matured in this offense. And outside zone was one of the most effective concepts against Shula's defense, 4.64 yards per attempt. Use that to build play action concepts. Isolate Swift on Nate Landman because, look, DeAndre Swift has wide receiver skills in space. We have said throughout all of his struggles, in space, DeAndre Swift is a very good player. Get him in space on Nate Landman. Again, set up play action. Then run him through the line on those play actions and have him break one way or another and see if Nate can keep up with him. I don't think he can, and I think Chicago can use that to their advantage. Short passing in the cold, a lot better than trying 20 and 30-yard shots down the sideline when it's windy and snowy. My guess on the defensive side, look, Shula is a very good coordinator, and he is getting head coaching opportunities because of that, or at least interviews. I think he's going to focus on shutting down Colston Loveland because we saw Colston Loveland absolutely ascend to be a top-tier tight end against Green Bay. Everybody knows now that the passing offense is going to run through Colston Loveland. Shula knows that. He's not stupid. He's going to focus on that. And that means Rome, who is coming back from injury, had one big catch, what was pretty slow in the game. DJ, who's had big catch after big catch, and Luther Burden, who's been up and down, but more up certainly in the second half of the season than down, are going to have to make those catches. They are going to be high degree of difficulty. It is going to be windy. It is going to be snowy. Shula's defense is going to be on you. They are going to be contested catches. When they get those one-on-one chances, after you've been running the ball, after you've been pulling those linebackers in, after you've been setting up the play action, even though it's going to be frigid and the ball is going to be hard and it's going to be noisy, everything else, you've got to make those catches. You might only get 1 or 2 chances each for those guys. They have to pay them off. If they don't, the Bears are going to struggle to get those explosive plays because that's what they're building to, is the ability to take those shots. When they get a few of them, they have to hit some of them, and that means those guys have to make the catches when they get the chances.
And I will say, building on that, Chris Shula doesn't give a whole lot of one-on-one opportunities, and that's by design because he doesn't think they can play man. Right, they're 29th in man rate this year, just 15%. And if you're looking at especially man on third down, like they are almost exclusively quarters and quarter half in like true passing situations. And so for me, knowing to your point that they're probably going to build the box around Colston Loveland first, like he is essentially the most dangerous passing threat on this team, which like. We like Colston Loveland a lot coming out in the draft. I don't think we expected rookie Colston Loveland to be the thing that everybody's more scared of than DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and Luther Burden. But here we are. Like, he's the one that you absolutely cannot leave alone. And so when they're playing all these zone coverages, like when they have to decide who we're building the bracket around structurally, it's probably going to be 84. And since somebody's going to have to be one-on-one, like even in match zone coverages, it's essentially a man coverage with zone coverage principles or a zone coverage with man coverage principles, depending on how you want to word it. Somebody's going to be one-on-one. So knowing that they're probably most scared of Colston, I'm then looking outside and saying, where's Emmanuel Forbes? Which receiver is on Emmanuel Forbes one-on-one? Because they're going to have to sacrifice the help that he would normally get to whoever's covering Colston. And Emmanuel Forbes, for whatever reason, right, I praised him before the Carolina game. He has given up almost half of his catches for the year since that Carolina game, right? And he's given up 4 of his 7 touchdowns for the year since that Carolina game. So I think it's pretty easy to see why Chris Shula doesn't play man coverage. It's because he doesn't think his corners can handle it, especially since week 13. And so I'm taking advantage of that. Again, I'm running the ball. But if we get a one-on-one in shot territory, you know, I'm at like 35-yard line and I want to see if I could just score right now and get a chunk, I'm looking for Emmanuel Forbes. And if for whatever reason they're really stupid and leave Colston one-on-one, okay, we could take our shots to 84. But more than likely, those shots are going to come against Forbes. I'm looking for him. I'm taking that if I got it, and I'm trusting Caleb to make the throw.
And this was one of the things we said when Caleb was drafted in Chicago. Everybody worries when you draft a quarterback in Chicago, how are they going to play in games like this late in the year ball is cold. Weather is bare weather. You can call it whatever you want. It's hard weather to throw the football in. You got wind coming off the lake, snow. It's really, really cold. Can you cut the ball through the wind? Caleb has one of the best arms in the NFL. If I'm trusting somebody to cut the ball through the wind from off angles with bad footing, hell, he doesn't even need footing. He made one of his best throws of the year last week without either foot on the ground. Caleb can cut the ball through the wind. Matt Stafford can too. He has a great arm. He always has. So you need quarterbacks in this kind of weather specifically that can push the ball through the wind. There are a lot of folks in the NFL that can't, who would be at a severe disadvantage. Both throwers are going to have that ability, and it is important in games like this. You're going to see why. It's just like kickers having a strong leg and being able to drive the ball. Like when it's windy, you can't hang it up there forever and hope that it's going to make it 3-4 seconds through the goalpost, and you're going to be able to master the golf hook and put that thing through. That's tough to do, and you need those points. So both teams are going to have that. If I'm the Rams defense, everything they can to attack the left tackle position, whether it's Theo Benedict or Braxton, doesn't matter. Now, both of those guys have actually played starting snaps for the Bears this year. That's kind of rare that a team has 3 left tackles that all have meaningful snaps, but it's good for the Bears. But look, it's still a mismatch for that defensive line. Like, they're going to have to help out whoever is at left tackle. It sucks that Ozzie went down with a knee injury, especially the type of knee injury. We talked about it with Rashawn Slater, patellar tendon. Like, it's rough, but if I'm the Rams, I'm going to hammer that mercilessly. This is the playoffs. I think that's an advantage. I think my defensive line is better than whoever you run out there, and I am going to try and confuse that player, because any change in the offensive line, even if they have some of those snaps, even if they have some of that rapport built, is going to upset the apple cart. They were in a very nice groove with their starting 5. If I'm the Rams, I know that, and I'm going to just chip away at that every chance I get, because that's a place I think I can win. I can get to Caleb. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be able to bring him down, because he's one of the best in the league at avoiding that, but at least I can put him under pressure, reduce that time he has to throw, and maybe flush him out of the pocket. Sometimes that works for opponents. Sometimes it works against opponents. We'll see which one it is this week, but that's the area that I'm focusing on. Is I am going to try and play through the left tackle to Caleb as quickly as I can. And I think with my guys, I can get it done.
You want to hear a weird Rams defense stat that I had to double check about 4 times to make sure this was accurate. I went to 4 different sources, right? Because I went on Sumer first, and I was like, how many tackles for loss do the Rams have against the run this year? And I was like, second fewest. That doesn't sound right. So then I went to PFF. I went to Pro Football Reference. I'm checking ESPN. I literally checked 4 different places, because I was like, how do the Rams, with all their defensive line talent, have 50 tackles for loss or no gain against the run this year? But that's true. Like, they have the second fewest tackles for loss or no gain against the run. As far as tackles for loss overall, including pass plays where they blow up screens and stuff, I want to say they were second fewest, only ahead of Cincy. So that's the company they keep there as far as like generating negative plays on defense. That to me was stunning, right? And then if you're looking at average yards before contact per attempt, they're tied with Buffalo at 1.3. So for whatever reason, this Rams defensive line, as effective as they are as a pass rushing unit, they entered the playoffs 5th best, I believe, according to Next Gen Stats, as far as pressure rate, off the top of my head. This is a defensive line that is not really productive against the run as far as generating explosive defensive plays, getting tackles for loss, setting offenses up in 2nd and 11, 2nd and 12. I really want to do a study to see why that is. Like, is it a technique thing? Is it a call thing? Like, is it just because they don't call a lot of early down blitzes? Like, I don't know what it is, but the number is the number. So I'm going to keep track of that in this game, because if they're not getting any stops or TFLs on early downs, and it's Monungai for 4, Swift for 5. Here comes Monungai in for 3rd and short. Okay, he gets 3. 1st and 10, Monungai again for 5. Like, if it's that over and over and over again, and they're not getting into 2nd and 12, and it's 10 degrees and snowy, and the first half ends in an hour, Rams are in trouble here.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to get off the field if that's the case. And we know Ben loves the run, and that the run is the closest offensive concept to his heart. If you want to get to Ben Johnson's heart, it's not through his stomach, it's through great run plays. And if he can use that,
or if you're Matt LaFleur, it's with the knife in his hand.
True story.
By the way, side note, I loved that he said fuck the Packers. I really do. I know a lot of people got their panties in a bunch over it, but like, it's the Bears head coach. They're supposed to hate the Packers, especially as much as Bears fans do. Like, that's part of the job. Like, you get hired to coach football and hate the Packers. It's literally in the job description. So if people are upset by that, sorry. Like, I would expect Matt LaFleur to hate the Bears too. Like, that's literally why you take the Bears coaching job, is to beat the Packers. Winning Super Bowls is also great. You beat the Packers. It's like Ohio State and Michigan. That's job one here.
For everybody that is upset about that, here's my rule. How did you feel about Aaron Rodgers in Chicago saying, I own you? Like, if you didn't come out against that, if you didn't get upset about that or say that's poor sportsmanship or anything else, which I guarantee you 0 Packers fans did, you don't get to be mad about this. Now that the shoe is on the other foot and somebody says something nasty about you, you got to deal with it if you thought that was funny, right? So sometimes, me reaping and me sowing, right? This is, oh, that sucks when it's us. Yes, it certainly does, but that's what happens. So if you didn't get mad then, and if you did, credit to you, great job. If you're on the other side of the debate, you don't get to be angry now. So we don't get to have selective outrage about these things now that Chicago actually did something good in a football rivalry. So we'll see. But this game's going to be fascinating. Outdoors, weather conditions are going to be a thing. 2 of the best teams, completely different teams. This is one thing, mini soapbox about Chicago, that I've realized, especially now that we're into the playoffs, but even in the run up to the playoffs, is we don't really have our heads properly calibrated about what the Bears are. We want them to be a certain thing. And this extends to Caleb, and Ben Solak said that we're not properly calibrated for his talent. And I think that's true, but I think it extends not just to Caleb, but the entire team. This team does not do things like you want a team to do it, right? You do not want a team to like not hit the power switch for the entire first half. Like, it's exciting, but as a coach, as a fan, it's not really what you want. However, it is impossible to argue with the results, right? This team gets it done the way this team gets it done. They are one of one in that way. They approach it in a unique way, and they have tremendous results. We can say we don't like the process, and we've said that several times, but we cannot say they're not good anymore. We can say they're improbable, that they're not really like anything else we've ever seen, but we can't argue with the fact that this is a quality football team that is very, very dangerous. And if you think opposing players and coaches aren't thinking the same thing after what Caleb did to Green Bay, you're out of your mind. They think this is like picking up a snake. Like, don't get your hands near it, and if you reach, don't miss, because if you do, that thing's going to bite you.
See, I kind of have the same thoughts about Stafford, right? Which is like, oh, please don't let him on the field 11 times because he will gut you. He's done it. And I know it's cold weather, and you brought up the record and cold weather thing. I don't know, man. I've seen what that guy can do. And I know the Bears can't cover Puka. I know they definitely can't cover Devontae. I'm shaky on if they're going to be able to stop Kyron and Corum. If this turns into a shootout, which will be weird because it's a cold snow game, but if it happens to be a cold weather snowy shootout, I fear it would end up the same way the Niners game did, because ultimately Stafford is a demon, and I don't like the Bears' odds of winning a shootout. I like the Bears' odds of winning something messy and gross, and something that like closely approximates football for 15 minutes and then all of a sudden turns into a barn burner in the last 15. Like, that's the kind of game they can win. But if they have to like actually play good football back and forth for 60 minutes against Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, advantage Rams there. So that's part of the reason why I want them to run the ball so much is to let's just get to the fourth quarter as fast as possible when they become a real team again. But short of that, if they have to be a real team for the entire game, Rams probably win this one. Do you have a prediction?
I'm going to go with Chicago, and it is part heart. I chose heart with the Bills versus Broncos pick, and part head. Part head is this weather certainly favors Chicago. And again, I might not like how they get there. Sometimes I really don't. But I do like what they are able to do and how they play for each other. And it is so tough to count them out. If we were stacking this up and saying neutral field, to your point, in a dome, I think this is Rams all the way. McVay is one of the most experienced postseason coaches in the NFL, one of the very best schemers, and he's got one of the greatest quarterbacks. This isn't that game. So I'm going to roll the dice, go with Chicago here, and I do have a bit of a side motivation, which I haven't shared with you. If the NFC Championship game ends up in Seattle, I will probably be there.
Ooh. That thought hadn't occurred to me yet.
It hadn't occurred to me either until one of my Seahawks friends reached out and said, "Hey, I know you're a Bears fan. Might be the end of our friendship, but I've got 2 tickets."
Shit.
I was like, okay, I don't think we're going to stop being friends because we're pretty good friends, but I'm definitely going to go to that game. So
we're definitely not going to stop being friends if you give me a ticket to the NFC Championship game, dude.
Great point. Mina posted this one, and I will leave you with it. Only one Packers run in the second half. You said you worried about them stopping Kyron Corum. One Packers run in the second half gained more than a single yard.
You know why that is, right? Which I probably should have talked about this earlier because I kind of did like a throwaway mention that DA started blitzing in the second half.
Right.
It's a 22% blitz rate in the first half up to 45% in the second half. Yeah. And on early down specifically, DA only blitzed 16% of the time in the first half. He blitzed 60% of the time on early downs in the second half. So, yeah, they went from 5.8 to under a yard per carry in the second half. They had bodies everywhere in the backfield. I was actually very pleasantly surprised by DA in the second half. I was cursing his name in the first half because
we were cursing his name together in the first half. Yeah.
You know, he was doing his Gus Bradley cosplay that he always does, where he's like, "I'll just play cover 3 again." And he wasn't changing it up. And Matt LaFleur was eating him for breakfast. And then for whatever reason, coming out of halftime, he realized I have to not be myself for once. And he just blitzed and blitzed and blitzed and blitzed. And suddenly they got stops. Go fucking figure, Dennis. So hopefully he keeps doing that. But again, my biggest fear is that if he goes back to doing his normal Dennis Allen thing and playing cover 1 and cover 3 all day, who's better at beating that than Sean McVay?
Nobody. To go back to a Harbaughism, nobody. So going to be a fascinating game. Again, Bears can't start slow. Rams are going to be fighting the elements as well as the Bears. And if it does come down close and late, I absolutely know which team I'm going with to win this game, because the Bears shouldn't have won a lot of games that they did this year, but they did win them.
Yeah, the more nonsensical the fourth quarter, the more I favor Chicago.
Correct.
Not saying you can live on that forever, but you can live on it for now.
Yeah.
And I'll take that. All right. I want to thank everybody who's watching and listening wherever you happen to be watching and listening. Thank you to all of our patrons. Thank you to our executive producers on Patreon. We'll be back next week, talking about, first we'll probably do the same thing we did this week, where we'll talk about the teams that get eliminated, what went well, what didn't go well, what went expected versus unexpected, and how do they, take the next step in 2026. So we'll go through all the losers in the first show, and then we'll preview the conference championships later next week. Thank you once again for watching and listening, and we will see you in a few days.